Deep within the Erd Tree, where golden light has long since dimmed to a spectral glow, the shattered form of Queen Marika hangs suspended. Her body, pierced and bound by thorns of her own making, exists in a state between destruction and divinity. Cracks run through her stone-like flesh, like veins of molten gold, each fracture telling the story of a god who chose to break herself rather than remain whole under another's will. This is not merely the aftermath of violence. This is the physical manifestation of the Elden Ring itself, shattered and imprisoned within its own vessel. Welcome, lore seekers, to another deep dive with Keen 7 Lore, where today we unravel one of gaming's most profound mysteries. What exactly is the Elden Ring? Beyond being the title of From Software's masterpiece, beyond being a MacGuffin that drives our quest, the Elden Ring represents something far more fundamental and disturbing. It is reality itself made manifest, the cosmic source code of existence, and perhaps most terrifyingly, a prison disguised as paradise. As we journey through the metaphysical layers of this artifact, we'll discover that the Elden Ring is nothing less than the embodiment of order imposed upon chaos, a divine algorithm that determines not just who lives and dies, but the very nature of life and death themselves. The Elden Ring is the source of the Erd Tree, and its various interlocking runes represent and even establish the fundamental laws of the world. Think about that for a moment. We're not talking about a magical artifact that grants wishes or enhances power. We're discussing something that literally defines what reality is and how it functions. Every law of nature, every cycle of life and death, every fundamental truth about existence and the lands between flows from this singular cosmic artifact. Special beings known as Empyreans are able to become vessels of the Elden Ring, allowing them to carry it within their bodies and become gods. The current vessel is Queen Marika the Eternal, the god of the ruling Golden Order. The vessels can alter the runes that make up the Elden Ring itself, changing the fundamental laws of the world, as Marika did when she removed the rune of death and began the age of the Erd Tree. Picture, if you will, reality as a vast tapestry. No, that metaphor has been worn threadbare. Instead, imagine reality as an infinite equation, constantly calculating and recalculating the parameters of existence. The Elden Ring is both the equation and the calculator, processing the fundamental forces that shape everything from the growth of a single blade of grass to the rise and fall of empires. When we see those interlocking golden arcs and circles, we're not looking at decoration or symbolism. We're witnessing the actual mechanism by which reality operates, made visible through divine manifestation. Long ago, the greater will fractured the one great, creating births and souls. The adherents of the Three Fingers consider this action to be a mistake, because it resulted in torment, despair, affliction, sins, and curses. Before the Elden Ring, before the greater will's intervention, there existed something called the One Great, a primordial unity where all things were one. The fracturing of this unity didn't just create individuals, it created the very concept of individuality, of separation, of distinction between self and other. The Elden Ring then becomes the tool through which this separation is maintained and organized, preventing reality from collapsing back into primordial chaos. But how did this cosmic artifact come to the lands between? The greater will sent a star bearing its gleaming daughter to the lands between. It communicated with Metyr, Mother of Fingers, through the microcosm held between her tail fingers. Soon, a second, golden star containing an Elden Beast arrived in the lands between. This Elden Beast was the greater will's vision for order, and it would later become the Elden Ring. The arrival wasn't sudden or violent, at least not initially. It was a seeding, a careful implantation of cosmic order into a world that had existed under different laws, different truths. Long ago, the greater will sent a golden star bearing a beast into the lands between, which later became the Elden Ring. It was the vassal beast of the greater will and the living incarnation of the concept of order. Consider the implications here. The Elden Ring isn't just a tool or weapon. It's a living thing, or at least it was. The Elden Beast that we face at the game's climax isn't merely guarding the Elden Ring. It is the Elden Ring given form and consciousness. When we fight it, we're literally battling against the concept of order itself, against the fundamental structures that hold reality together. The physical appearance of the Elden Beast gives us crucial insights into the nature of the Elden Ring. Its translucent cosmic body contains what appears to be the night sky, complete with stars and nebulae. This isn't mere aesthetic choice. The beast, and by extension the ring, contains or represents the cosmos itself. When Marika became its vessel, she didn't just gain power over the lands between, she became a living container for the universe's operating system. Every breath she took, every word she spoke, every gesture she made was performed by a being whose very existence housed the mathematical certainty of reality. If you're finding value in this exploration so far, consider subscribing to support the channel and join our growing community of lore enthusiasts. Your support truly makes these deep investigations possible. The Elden Ring contains numerous runes, with two fundamental laws governing the land's existence. The first logic was the law of causality, which is basically just cause and effect. The other logic was the law of regression, which basically is about all things striving to return to their roots. These aren't philosophical concepts or religious beliefs, they're actual physical laws that govern how reality functions. The law of causality ensures that actions have consequences, that time moves forward, that entropy increases. Without it, cause and effect would cease to exist, and reality would become a meaningless jumble of unconnected events. The law of regression, conversely, creates the tension that prevents everything from simply dispersing into nothingness. It's the force that pulls things back toward their origins, creating cycles, patterns, and the possibility of renewal. Together, these two laws create a stable but dynamic reality. Causality pushes forward while regression pulls backward, and in their tension, existence finds its rhythm. This is what the Elden Ring fundamentally is, not a crown or a weapon or even a source of power, but the cosmic mechanism that maintains the tension between progress and return, between differentiation and unity, between order and chaos. The great runes are the shards of the Elden Ring, currently making up the Golden Order and represent the concepts of order and discipline that the demigods enforced on the physical world. They were inherited by some of the demigod offspring of Queen Marika the Eternal, following the shattering of the Elden Ring. When Marika shattered the Elden Ring, she didn't just break a magical artifact. She shattered reality's source code, fragmenting the very laws that govern existence. Each great rune that the demigods claimed wasn't merely a source of power. It was a fragment of reality's operating system, a piece of the cosmic equation that determines how things work. Godric's Great Rune, which enhances all attributes, represents the concept of general empowerment or perhaps ambitious growth. Radagon's Great Rune, granting health, stamina, and focus, embodies the concept of heroic endurance. Morgoth's Great Rune, described as an anchor ring, literally anchors reality itself, maintaining stability even in chaos. Each demigod didn't just inherit power, they inherited responsibility for maintaining a specific aspect of reality's function. The great strength they granted tainted the demigods, compelling them to war over control of the lands between. This mad taint wasn't just psychological corruption. It was the result of mortal or semi-mortal beings attempting to wield fragments of reality itself, like trying to hold a piece of the sun in your bare hands. But there's a deeper horror here that often goes unexamined. If the Elden Ring determines the fundamental laws of reality, then whoever controls it doesn't just rule the lands between in a political sense. They literally define what is possible and impossible, what is true and false, what is real and unreal. To understand the importance of the shattering of the Elden Ring, it is important to know why it is so prevalent in the first place. As a symbol of its power, the Elden Ring was bestowed upon Marika as a means to harness the power of the greater will. With this, the various runes within determined the rules of the world and established order. Core to Marika's usage of the Elden Ring was the removal of the Rune of Death, establishing a world without death. Consider what Marika did when she removed the Rune of Death. She didn't simply make people immortal in the traditional sense. She removed death as a concept from reality's equation. Death still existed, but it existed outside the system, sealed away with Malekith. This created a reality where things could be killed but not truly die, where souls could be recycled through the Erd Tree, where the natural cycle of life and death was replaced with an artificial cycle of life and rebirth under the greater will's control. This is the Golden Order, not just a religion or a political system, but a specific configuration of reality itself. Every prayer to the Golden Order is a prayer to maintain this particular version of how reality functions. Every fundamentalist incantation is an attempt to understand and manipulate the cosmic mathematics that the Elden Ring embodies. A rune of transcendental ideology which will attempt to perfect the Golden Order. The current imperfection of the Golden Order, or instability of ideology, can be blamed upon the fickleness of the gods, no better than men. That is the fly in the ointment. Even Goldmask, in his profound meditation, appears to recognize that the problem isn't with the Order itself, but with the conscious beings who wield it. His Mending rune attempts to remove the variable of conscious will from the equation altogether. The relationship between Marika and Radagon adds another layer of complexity to our understanding of the Elden Ring. After Godfrey's banishment from the lands between, Marika took Radagon as second husband and king consort, elevating him to become the second Elden Lord. Radagon already had 3 children with Queen Renala of the Carian royal family, and after his union with Marika, she would raise her new stepchildren, Radahn, Ricard, and Ranni, to demigod status. Marika and Radagon would go on to have 2 more children of their own, the twins Malenia and Miquella, who, like Marika herself and Radagon's daughter Ranni, were Empyreans and were thus potential successors to Marika. However, Radagon and Marika were in truth the same. The revelation that Radagon is Marika transforms our understanding of what it means to be the Elden Ring's vessel. The vessel doesn't simply carry the ring, they embody its fundamental duality. Radagon represents Order's desire for perfection, for completion, for absolute structure. Marika represents the consciousness trapped within that structure. Perhaps the last remnant of free will fighting against cosmic determinism. Their shared body is the battlefield where this conflict plays out, and the shattering was the moment when that internal conflict became external, when the contradiction at the heart of the Golden Order could no longer be contained. Marika's hammer also reveals that Marika was the one that shattered the Elden Ring, while Radagon used the same hammer to try and repair it, suggesting that although they are the same being, they have fundamentally different ideals. The tool with which Queen Marika shattered the Elden Ring and Radagon attempted to repair it. The hammer partially broke upon shattering the ring, becoming splintered with rune fragments. The same hammer, wielded by the same hands, used for opposite purposes. This isn't mere metaphor, it's the physical manifestation of a consciousness at war with itself, of a god attempting to destroy the very thing that makes them divine. When we examine the shattering through this lens, it becomes clear that Marika's act wasn't one of madness or grief, though those emotions certainly played a role. The Knight of Black Knives became the catalyst for the shattering. In response to Godwyn's death, Queen Marika the Eternal used her hammer to shatter the Elden Ring. Elden Lord Radagon, her other half, attempted to repair the Elden Ring, but in vain. As punishment for her offense, Marika, alongside Radagon, was imprisoned within the Erd Tree. The death of Godwyn, her golden son, represented something that shouldn't have been possible under the Golden Order. Death had been removed from reality's equation, yet here it was, manifesting in the worst possible way, a soul killed while the body lived on. This paradox, this impossibility made manifest, might have been the final proof Marika needed that the Golden Order was fundamentally flawed. The system she had helped create, the reality she had shaped by removing death, had produced something worse than death. An existence that was neither life nor death, neither order nor chaos, but a grotesque hybrid that should not be. In the words of Gowry, an Empyrean is no mere demigod, and has the power to become a new god, to forge a new order. Godwin's fate showed that even gods could not fully control the order they created. The various endings of Elden Ring each represent different solutions to the problem of the Elden Ring, different ways of reconfiguring reality's operating system. The Age of Fracture simply reboots the system with the same basic parameters. The Age of Perfect Order attempts to debug the code, removing the inconsistencies caused by divine fickleness. Formed of the two Hallowbrand half-wheels combined, it will embed the principle of life within death into order. The Golden Order was created by confining destined death. Thus, this new order will be one of death restored. The Age of Duskborn reintroduces death into the equation, acknowledging that the attempt to remove it was the original error. But what about the Age of Stars, Ranni's ending? This represents perhaps the most radical reimagining of what the Elden Ring could be. Rather than simply reconfiguring the existing order, Ranni seeks to remove the order entirely from the lands between, taking it with her into the cold, dark void of space. Her vision is of an order so distant, so removed from daily life, that it cannot oppress or control, yet still maintains enough influence to prevent reality from collapsing entirely. Its order, as a distant constellation rather than an omnipresent sun. The Lord of Frenzied Flame ending, conversely, represents the complete rejection of the Elden Ring and everything it represents. The adherents of the Three Fingers consider this action to be a mistake because it resulted in torment, despair, affliction, sins, and curses. If the Greater Will's fracturing of the One Great was the original sin, then the Frenzied Flame seeks to undo that sin by burning away all distinction, all separation, all order, returning everything to the primordial unity that existed before. It's not destruction so much as uncreation, a cosmic reversal that would erase not just the Elden Ring, but the very concept of rings, of circles, of boundaries and definitions. The Elden Ring's influence extends far beyond its immediate magical effects. It shapes language, thought, culture, and even the physical structure of the world. The Erd Tree, that massive golden world tree that dominates the landscape, is not just nourished by the Elden Ring, it is its source. Every golden leaf, every beam of grace, light, every guidance of gold that leads the tarnished forward is an extension of the ring's influence, a visible manifestation of Order's presence in the world. The Two Fingers, those strange prophetic entities that guide the tarnished, are described as envoys of the Greater Will, but they're also interpreters of the Elden Ring itself. The Greater Will speaks through the Two Fingers, which are the product of Metyr, Mother of Fingers, who was the first shooting star to fall upon the lands between. The Two Fingers do not speak in the traditional sense and require special finger readers to interpret their words. They read reality's source code and translate it into instructions, prophecies, and commandments. When they fall silent after the Erd Tree rejects the tarnished, it's because the code has become corrupted, the system has encountered an error it cannot process. The Mother received signs from the Greater Will from the beyond of the microcosm. Despite being broken and abandoned, she kept waiting for another message to come. Even Metyr, the Mother of Fingers, the first star to fall and establish communication between the Greater Will and the lands between, finds herself abandoned. This abandonment suggests something profound about the nature of the Elden Ring. It's a system that, once initiated, runs independently of its creator. The Greater Will sent the Elden Beast, established the order, and then withdrew? Or perhaps it was never as present as the Golden Order claimed. This brings us to one of the most disturbing implications of the Elden Ring's nature. If it truly is reality's operating system, and if that system can run independently of its creator, then who or what is actually in control? Is anyone? The demigods fight over great runes. Empyreans vie to become vessels. Tarnished struggle to become Elden Lord. But perhaps they're all just subroutines in a program that's running exactly as designed. Every choice, every rebellion, every attempt to change or destroy the system might itself be part of the system's function. Because it turns into the Elden Ring, then turns back into a beast to fight when the vessel is destroyed, the Elden Beast is, above all, an extension of the Greater Will. When we face the Elden Beast in that ethereal arena, we're not just fighting a boss. We're challenging the very concept of structured reality. The arena itself, that endless expanse of shallow water reflecting the cosmos, represents the fundamental plane of existence, the baseline reality upon which everything else is built. Our battle takes place not in the lands between, but in the space between spaces, the cosmic framework that underlies all physical reality. The beast's attacks are particularly telling. It wields golden order itself as a weapon, manifesting sacred geometry as destructive force. Its grab attack, where it crucifies the player in a manner eerily similar to Marika's imprisonment, suggests that the beast and Marika's fates are intertwined in ways that go beyond vessel and content. It is heavily implied that the Elden Beast was the being who imprisoned Marika inside the Erd Tree based on one of its attacks, where it attempts to grab the player and lift them up in the air to crucify and then pierce them with a barrage of golden spears, similar to how Marika was seen in the cutscene before the final boss battle. The beast doesn't just enforce order, it inflicts order, imposes order, makes order into both prison and punishment. This understanding transforms our perception of Marika's crucifixion within the Erd Tree. She's not simply imprisoned, she's been incorporated into the order she tried to shatter. Her body has become part of the ring's structure, a living component in the cosmic machine. The thorns that pierce her are the ring's attempt to reassert control, to reintegrate its vessel into its pattern. Radagon's emergence from her body isn't transformation, but revelation, showing us that the vessel of the Elden Ring inevitably becomes the ring itself. The fact that Radagon's body contains the Elden Ring's pattern, glowing with runic light, confirms this. He has become a living diagram of order, his flesh inscribed with reality's source code. When he fights us, he's not protecting the Elden Ring. He is the Elden Ring, defending itself. Every hammer blow carries the weight of cosmic law. Every grab attack attempts to incorporate us into the order we're trying to usurp or destroy. In lore, they're the pieces of the titular Elden Ring, and there are 6 you can collect. But why only 6 primary great runes when the Elden Ring symbol shows many more arcs and circles? The missing runes represent aspects of order that have been lost, hidden, or deliberately removed. The Rune of Death, sealed with Malekith. Runes that may have governed concepts we can no longer even comprehend, laws of reality that have been written out of existence. Each missing rune is a hole in reality, a function that no longer computes, a part of the cosmic equation that's been commented out. The Mending runes offer us glimpses of what could be added back or newly introduced to the ring's structure. The reviled curse will last eternally, and the world's children, grandchildren, and every generation hence will be its pustules. The Dung Eater's Mending rune of the Fell Curse doesn't just curse individuals, it writes cursedness into reality's source code, making suffering and revulsion fundamental aspects of existence. It's perhaps the most honest of all the endings, acknowledging that if reality can be programmed, then it can be programmed for suffering as easily as for joy. As we near the culmination of our journey through the Elden Ring's nature, we must confront its most troubling aspect, the question of free will. If the Elden Ring truly determines the fundamental laws of reality, if it establishes not just physical laws but conceptual ones, then does free will exist within its order? Or are all beings, from the lowliest soldier to Queen Marika herself, simply executing functions within a vast cosmic program? The Tarnished Journey offers a possible answer. Grace guides us, yes, but we can ignore it. We can choose our path, decide which demigods to face, and in what order, determine which ending to pursue. Yet even this freedom might be illusory. Perhaps the appearance of choice is itself part of the order, a necessary function that allows the system to evolve and adapt. The Tarnished, after all, are brought back specifically because the established order has failed. We're not rebels against the system, we're its error correction protocol. Marika would then beckon the Tarnished to return to the lands between, extending her grace along with the guidance of the 2 fingers in hopes of ushering in the 3rd Elden Lord. Marika's plan, if it can be called that, seems to involve using the Tarnished to complete what she started with the Shattering. but even this might be part of a larger pattern, a cosmic cycle of creation, corruption, destruction, and renewal that the Elden Ring undergoes periodically. The concept of Empyreans provides another window into the ring's nature. Marika is an Empyrean, a vessel chosen by the Two Fingers to serve an outer god known as the Greater Will. These special beings aren't just chosen for their power or worthiness. They're selected because they can serve as living containers for reality's operating system. They must be able to house infinity within finite flesh, to embody concepts that transcend physical existence. The fact that they can be born rather than made suggests that the capacity to hold the Elden Ring is itself written into reality's code, a recursive function that ensures the system can always find a new vessel when needed. One thing clear about this is that Miquella and Malenia, being twins born of the Marika Radagon, meant that they were Empyreans, as they are both born of a single god. The twins aren't the only Empyreans among the demigods, as Ranni reveals in her questline that she is one as well. Though it is not explained how Ranni is an Empyrean, as the rules of being one is not explicitly stated. The nature of Empyreans remains partially mysterious, but their existence proves that the Elden Ring's influence extends to determining who can potentially wield it. It's a self-perpetuating system that creates its own administrators. What then does the Elden Ring actually mean and represent? At its most fundamental level, it represents the tension between order and freedom, between structure and chaos, between the cosmic and the personal. It's a symbol of power that questions the nature of power itself. Can absolute order exist without becoming tyranny? Can reality function without strict laws, or do those laws inevitably become chains? The ring represents the paradox of divinity, gods who are bound by the very forces they supposedly control. Marika, the eternal, is trapped within eternity. Radagon, who seeks perfection, is himself imperfect. The greater will which imposed order may have lost control of that order, or perhaps never had as much control as it claimed. Each level of divine authority reveals itself to be subject to a higher law, a greater structure, an even more fundamental order, recursive unto infinity. The Elden Ring also represents humanity's relationship with systems of control. We create laws, structures, hierarchies, and orders to manage chaos and create meaning, but these systems inevitably take on lives of their own, becoming forces that shape us more than we shape them. The Golden Order, with its rigid hierarchies and exclusions, its blessing of some and cursing of others, mirrors real-world systems of power and control. The Shattering represents what happens when those systems become so corrupt, so removed from their original purpose, that destruction seems the only solution. Yet destruction, as we see, doesn't necessarily lead to freedom. The Shattering didn't liberate the lands between, it plunged them into chaos and war. The demigods, freed from the unified order, didn't create better individual orders. They fought endlessly over fragments of the old one. This too reflects a truth about revolution and rebellion. Breaking a system is easier than building a better one. The Elden Ring poses questions that resonate far beyond the game itself. If you could rewrite the fundamental laws of reality, what would you change? Would you remove suffering? But without suffering, can joy exist? Would you eliminate death? But without death, does life have meaning? Would you ensure perfect justice? But who defines what justice is? These aren't just philosophical thought experiments within the game's context. They're literal choices the player must make. Each ending represents a different answer to these questions, a different vision of what reality should be. And perhaps that's the ultimate meaning of the Elden Ring. It's a mirror that reflects our own desires for how the world should work, our own vision of perfect order or necessary chaos. It asks us to consider what we would do with absolute power over existence itself, and whether any single vision of reality can ever be complete or correct. The game's title itself carries layered meaning. Elden evokes ancientness, something elder and eternal. Ring suggests both infinity, having no beginning or end, and bondage, that which binds and constrains. Together they form a paradox, eternal bondage, infinite constraint, an ancient circle that encompasses everything yet confines everything within its circumference. The Elden Ring is simultaneously the ultimate expression of freedom, the power to shape reality itself, and the ultimate prison, binding even gods to its cosmic law. As we reach the conclusion of this deep exploration into what the Elden Ring actually means and represents, we're left with more questions than answers, and perhaps that's as it should be. The Elden Ring, in its shattered state, scattered across the lands between, reflects the fragmented nature of truth itself. No single perspective, no matter how divine, can encompass the totality of existence. Marika learned this, possibly too late. Radagon never accepted it. The greater will either doesn't care or cannot change it. The Elden Ring represents the ultimate question of existence. Is reality deterministic or free? Are we bound by unbreakable laws or capable of transcendent choice? The game doesn't provide a definitive answer because perhaps there isn't one. Instead, it offers us the experience of grappling with these questions, of feeling the weight of cosmic responsibility, of understanding what it might mean to hold the power to shape existence itself. In the end, the Elden Ring is exactly what its shattered state suggests: broken, incomplete, yet still functional enough to maintain some semblance of order. It's a god that failed, a system that corrupted, a promise that couldn't be kept. Yet it's also the thing that stands between the lands between and complete dissolution. It's both problem and solution, disease and cure, prison and key. Thank you, fellow seekers of truth, for joining me on this metaphysical journey through one of gaming's most complex and profound artifacts. The Elden Ring challenges us to think beyond traditional fantasy tropes, to consider the very nature of reality, order, and existence. It transforms what could have been a simple MacGuffin into a philosophical statement about power, control, and the price of imposing order upon chaos. If this exploration has sparked your curiosity or given you new perspectives on the lands between, please consider subscribing to King 7 Lore. Your support allows us to continue these deep dives into gaming's richest lore, uncovering the hidden meanings and profound themes that make these worlds so compelling. Together, we'll continue to unravel the mysteries that others might overlook, finding meaning in the shattered fragments of digital worlds. Until next time, may you find your own truth in the spaces between order and chaos. And remember, sometimes the most profound power lies not in mending what is broken, but in understanding why it broke in the first place.